The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to another episode of Speaking with the Senator. I'm Senator Kevin Avard, representing District 12 here in New Hampshire. And today I'm joined with Ed McDonough from GateHouse. It's a recovery center here in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate you coming on. I was there for your ribbon cutting ceremony just recently, and it was a good turnout.
We had quite a good number of support and showing from the community and some alumni from our bigger clinical space. So it was our new clinical office.
So some alumni, so people that are actually in recovery that graduated from it?
Yeah, we have the Sober Living company was started about 9 years ago as GateHouse Sober Community. So as that kind of grew, we expanded our clinical services to offer therapists and psych nurse practitioners. And as that grew, we were in a smaller office on West Pearl Street here in Nashua.
How long were you there?
Probably about 2 or 3 years. We were above the Youth Council building.
On West Pearl Street?
Yep, West Pearl Street. So we were kind of nondescript, small office. Sometimes we'd have to take the table out to do group.
There's not a lot of room on West Pearl Street.
Yeah, there's not. It was on the third floor of the corner of Elm Street. I think it's Elm Street.
Is that where
Yeah, it looks like a bookstore, but I don't think they sell books.
They don't
there.
sell books
Yeah,
there.
the Youth Council is on the second floor.
Same building. I know exactly where
that helps out juveniles and the legal system and school system here.
And they're still there?
They're still there, yep. It's a good nonprofit.
So GateHouse basically moved to,
So we moved to Northeast Boulevard, 74 Northeast Boulevard.
Right.
In the clinical space. So we went from about 1,000 square feet to, I think, over 5,000 square feet now, so it's pretty big.
And they're what, 40 beds?
We have 50 beds, so our sober living beds are dispersed at 4 different locations throughout the city, 4 different houses.
Is it just for men only, or for?
Yeah, so at this time, we were all men when we started. We've been all men. We continue to be all men. We're looking and exploring the options, to be able to treat women as well.
So tell me a little bit about the founder of this program.
So my best friend Nathan Irvine founded the program about 9 years ago as an amends to his parents. So he's in long-term recovery. As he started his journey, he wanted to be able to help other guys, go through the 12-step ideology, have a safe place, be held accountable, learn some of those life skills that some people with substance misuse disorder and active addiction don't practice. And as he went through that program, he started it. I went through that program one of the first classes, and I wanted to stay in the treatment field, so I went to work in a smaller clinical role at Tewksbury State Hospital in the detox. And after a couple of years, we just decided that we had a vision of what we thought it should be with the housing and the 12-step philosophy and the clinical philosophy. So we decided to kind of merge and those two together, and I started working for him, and we ended up, at the ribbon cutting, kind of the pinnacle of kind of all that work in the past couple of years. Yeah. And we don't expect to slow down. We want to keep growing and provide services that the state desperately needs.
So this isn't a state-funded organization, right?
So we take private insurance.
How does insurance cover it?
So insurance will cover the clinical stuff. So the sober living side of it, there's 3 levels of care. There's PHP, partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient, and outpatient. Insurance will cover usually about 30 days of the PHP level of care, which is 24-hour staff, The meals are provided, and they have 6 to 7 hours a day of clinical programming. So they're in groups, individual therapy. The next level of care is intensive outpatient. So they'll do 3 to 4 hours a day of clinical programming. And then the sober living side of it is not covered by insurance, and usually they'll start working at that point and go, they'll do 5 days and 3 days of clinical programming and have a job. And then outpatient is where they work and just meet with a therapist once a week, maybe an outpatient group once a week as well.
So a little dumb question here.
Yeah.
You said sober living. So are we talking about alcoholics, or are we talking about addiction in a general broad?
We don't discriminate on substance.
Okay.
So obviously, with the state of affairs in the country now, opiates is the primary substance that most of our clients had addiction issues with. Alcohol usually tends to be there, sometimes on its own. Still, it's still like the number one abuse substance probably in the world.
Right.
And then now we're starting to see some methamphetamine. We've had just marijuana addictions. Whatever brings that person to a place where like they can no longer function without that substance, we're willing to help. Cocaine. I mean, it doesn't. The list could go on.
So sober is in a broader spectrum.
Yeah, it's a free of mind and mood altering substance. So we're an abstinence-based house. The houses are abstinence-based. So they're drug tested 3 times a week. They have chores. They have curfew. They're held accountable on other aspects of their life. How many 12-step meetings they go to, if they're meeting with their therapist. So there's kind of someone almost keeping supervision over them, is the best way to put it. And then they kind of go on from there to kind of get them ready for that next step of.
So, you use the word journey a lot. And, are we being politically correct, or is it really a journey? Is it, and the reason I'm asking that, unless you've gone through being an addict, sometimes you relapse and relapse and relapse. And some people associate that with the journey of, I tried, I didn't make it. I tried, I didn't make it. And maybe they've gone through that process on their own and they couldn't do it. And so when they get into a place like this, you call it a journey, but it really is. It's you're going down paths that you didn't expect to be here in life.
Yeah.
Right. No. And I guess I use it's not a soft pedal of a word. It really is. It's a struggle.
Yeah, I can only kind of speak from my own experience with that. As someone in long-term recovery, the journey is, February 11th, 2011 was the last time that I used a minor mood-altering substance. So, I haven't, in my journey through recovery and rebuilding life, I have not found it necessary to pick up a drink or a drug. Some people, it's part of their journey. You have to take some people use that word rock bottom. You kind of have to hit bottom the way you hit bottom. You have to take every drink you're supposed to take, and you have to experience every overdose you're supposed to overdose, maybe to get to that point where you have the courage and strength to kind of want to continue on. It's like, I hate to use it, but being treated almost for some serious medical conditions, it's a journey, right? Ups and downs, there's setbacks, you have to follow through with doctor's appointments and treatment protocols, and it's kind of the same thing within recovery. And even as people get multiple years and decades, they're still kind of on a journey with that in itself.
I used to be in a band with our drummer, tall guy, and he was, I think, 25 years sober. But went to AA every day, and apparently he got a leg injury, and they gave him some opioids. That was it. It brought him right back, and he had to go back into it's just his makeup, it's his design, and he's okay now from what I understand. But it's one of those things where, it's choice, but there's a magnet, that draws you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the believers that addiction is a disease, of the mind, and I heard a great speaker the other day at the public health conference talking about mental health, and it's one of those things that Everyone knows the 5 signs to a heart attack, but no one knows the 5 signs to a mental health breakdown. So I believe it's something like that where it has to be treated. And when I go to the doctor, I tell them up front about it, and you have a plan of attack and how you're going to treat that issue. So, I haven't experienced an injury where I've needed to have opiates. I hope I don't. Knock on wood. I think that for those that walk through that path, they have a disease, and that, for me, the disease of addiction controls how I think and feel, and for me, that's everything. So,
Right.
It's going to tell me that it's okay to take that pill, or it's okay to take that drink, or it's okay, unless I'm combating that disease on a daily basis, or doing preventative maintenance, whatever you want to use to describe it. I'm susceptible to any of those.
Well, we were talking off camera that, I think this year alone there's 500 deaths of overdose.
Yeah, it's tragic.
That's amazing. If it were the flu in New Hampshire, like you brought up,
Yeah.
There would be an outcry. And I do think there is an outcry. I think people are becoming more and more aware. But there's so many complications to this. We just finished up a study on Narcan. And, some of the feedback we're getting is this compassion fatigue, for the people that have to go to the same house over and over and over again. And their compassion for these people is waning. But that disease that they have it really has a ripple effect throughout the community, even those that are trying to help you. And we hear comments like, well, just let them die. And that draws a question. Well, how much is enough? How many times are you going to go to revive somebody? Like you said, though, these are part of the journeys. But what if it's your kid? What if it's your mother? What if it's your grandchildren's mother that's going through this? Well, you don't want them to die. You're exacerbated. Everything is at its critical moment. And the people that care about the user are at their wits' end, and they don't know how to handle it. And the people that are coming in to save, they're losing their compassion. We need more help, basically, right? Or at least an understanding that, like cancer, you treat it once, it still may come back.
Yeah, it might.
Or twice, or that's a painful process to go through the leukemia. Addiction is another painful process to go through, and it's one of the best signs of hope of recovery is the person wanting to.
Yeah, which, I agree. And, I talk to a lot of first responders. And, I think some people in the treatment get, compassion fatigue as well. But we also see the other side of it. So we focus on the success of it. So for every success story, yeah, there's someone that, that they might have not made it, or they might haven't just made it yet, and that's the thing with hope. And when you look at any other disease or illness, first responders, they don't stop giving the diabetic insulin, even though he eats a cupcake every day. So it's one of those things like there's hope. So I know that, and I have seen men and women that have had 10, 11 overdoses that now have 2 or 3 years clean, and that's a miracle in itself. So it's almost like that mustard seed is every time you help them, you got to try to plant that mustard seed of hope that there is a way out of the lifestyle they're living that day.
The majority of the people that come to GateHouse are they willing participants or non-willing participants? Are they forced to go there, court-ordered?
It's probably about 80%, 20. So we're lucky that as a private facility, the state can't order someone to go to our facility, but judges and probation officers do order treatment. Sometimes they end up with us. We work with the drug courts of New Hampshire. And some of them, I think, aren't willing. I think sometimes it's the parents, the wife, the family, but then they get into our culture, and that's a big thing that we have going for us. We have this sense of community is because, I have 5 or 6 alumni with multiple years in recovery on staff. So we basically say, this isn't what you're doing. This is what we do. If you want what we have, do what we do. You know, and it goes into that, you know, the 12-step ideology of you know, this is how one person recovered, and you know, you have a good chance if you do what we do that you can get that same kind of recovery. Now, it's not a one size fits all, but that when you have a bunch of people that know what that hope is and that you see it on a daily basis, I think it's easier for them to believe that they too could be one of those.
You obviously you get disappointed from time to time, but how do you bounce back from that?
You know, when someone doesn't you know, stay sober that you want to stay sober, it can be frustrating. But you know, I try to, you know, turn my energies to the person that's doing everything they can and is asking questions. And I still you know, will reach my hand out to the person that might have relapsed. You know, we don't quit.
Right.
You know, obviously, if they overdose and there's a death involved, you know, that stuff, but we even try to reach out to the family and get the family the treatment they need. You know, there's a bunch of organizations that work on the family side of it, that ripple effect, you know.
Right.
And the other side of the ripple effect is when someone is in recovery and they're a positive member of the community, that ripples effects. I mean, our clients are going to be tomorrow's they're going to be waking up at 6 a.m. to cook breakfast at the soup kitchen to help other people. You know, they're going to be volunteering at other events. They're going to be, most of them are employed full time. You know, there's landscaping companies and contracting companies that will come to us when they need employees first because they know they're going to show up, they're going to be clean and sober, they're going to have someone helping manage their money, and they're going to be motivated to want to contribute back to society. So that ripple effect kind of reverses itself as well.
So that's a positive thing. So after you help them through their first stages of recovery,
Yep.
you also put them on a path, and employment is obviously one. I mean, when you make a bunch of bad decisions, that hovers over your head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, we talked about it off camera, like they can't live in the past. You can't live in the past. It's already happened. You can't change it, you know, unless someone's got a DeLorean that I don't know about. You know, we're not going back in time. So it's to move forward. So one of the biggest things we realized, and there was an article about adolescence, is life skills that came out. You know, we literally have to teach some men how to do the dishes, how to write a resume, how to, I don't know, do an old checkbook ledger, and you know, balance bills and stuff, and balance life in general. So a lot of those skills that some of us take for granted, some people were never taught. A lot of men that we deal with as clients start using when they're 13 or 14. They barely finished high school, maybe. You know, how are they expected to just, you know, stop doing the one thing they know how to do and then manage everything else? So we try to set them up with like a life skills plan for the future, and it includes all that stuff, you know. Even sometimes just tying a tie for them so they can go to a job interview.
So with this opioid epidemic we have, it's not just kids. It's not just, you know, young 21-year-olds. It's across the board, right? I mean, you see every lifestyle in there, I would imagine.
Yeah, we have all the different age groups, all the different background, you know, ethnic backgrounds.
Anything surprise you?
You know, it's the clients that the ones that sometimes I feel like I don't know how I'm going to help, and they're 60 years old, 62. You know, either a lifelong drinker or they got hurt. You know, a union guy got hurt and then he got hooked on pain pills, and now he's, you know, trying to figure out kind of where it went wrong, and he's already got a wife and 2 kids and a mortgage, you know. And when they find that they can still live a better life than what they thought they were living, you know, that's rewarding. But those are the challenging ones, I think, is, you know, because they don't see any hope because they've already kind of lived their life, you know, and want to change a bunch of mistakes and resentments in the past.
I would imagine a lifetime of bad decisions is something that you want to erase.
Yeah, and we look at it as like a ball of yarn, and eventually it becomes a piece of string.
Do you ever get involved with some of the faith-based organizations that get people involved? Because it seems to me you don't hear a lot of churches. You know, you hear state program, but you know, you don't hear a whole lot about the private organizations out there that aren't receiving federal money or state money, and you don't hear, you know, some of the good works that the local, you know, parishes or churches are doing?
Yeah, so I try to work with the Interfaith Council here in Nashua as best as we can, and we'll refer. And I know the Salvation Army, their representative. We're fortunate that Nashua kind of took the initiative and formed like the mayor's task force. So there's a lot of these organizations that all come together a couple times a month to kind of discuss stuff and basically establish communication, because there was a lot of different places kind of doing the same thing but not
You got the
communicating.
front door and
Yeah.
the soup kitchen and all these other areas.
Yes.
It's good that they talk.
So
to
it's
each other.
how we can form that like kind of continuum of care, and on the church side of it, I mean, a lot of those church halls are instrumental in the recovery community in Nashua, because they host a lot of the 12-step meetings and smart recovery meetings and other stuff. So they're actually doing a lot to that community, because a lot of those people would have no place to meet, if it wasn't for them. So they kind of all work together, and I think that, the local parishes kind of like to be the silent helper, the true sense of humility, I guess, in that.
So a lot of times, people, they get into a certain situation where they're on the streets. Are they able to come to you? And of course, they don't have insurance.
Yeah, so it's we do offer scholarships. We'll work with the newly formed Safe Station programs. About a year we've been trying to do.
How are the safe stations working out anyway?
From my experience, they've had over, I guess the last report came out, I think it was over 900 people went through the fire department doors, I guess. And
In Nashua?
In Nashua. Access the Safe Stations program. And I know that they're using, the resources they have there to the fullest. And we'll scholarship, clients at our place when we can and try to set them up. And if we can't help them, we refer a lot of people to other places that can. So if they're looking for a bed, and even if they're a woman and we can't take them, we'll find a safe place for them to go, usually over the phone. We have a whole clinical outreach team that kind of handles that.
Do you cover psychiatric care? I mean,
We offer mental health care. We have a psych nurse practitioner on our staff and some licensed mental health counselors. Some of the more severe psychiatric diagnoses will obviously refer to a higher level of care, because our primary treatment is substance abuse with the mental health issues that go with it.
what's your greatest success story there?
I don't know. There's been a lot. I mean, myself, I consider a success story of the program, because I'm still there, and I'm still haven't found it necessary to pick up a drink or a drug. But some of our alumni are all scattered out. I'll probably play favoritism to the ones I see every day that work for us, because they're continuing to pass along that message. But anyone that doesn't pick up a drink or a drug after they leave us is a success story, because everybody's different. Everyone's, even what you and I would view as success, is a little bit different. But if men leave my program and they're not picking up minor mood altering substance, and they're telling other people struggling how they did it, then I did my job.
Right.
Whether they get their car back, their companies back, I mean, that's great. But
When should somebody intervene on behalf of somebody else? When do you say, enough is enough? You need help, and I need to, I'm not going to take no for an answer. When is that point? Obviously, every individual case is different. But when do you stop becoming an enabler?
Yeah, I think the best advice that I received on enabling is, if you think you're enabling, you probably are. But I think intervening as early as possible. I don't think you can intervene too much. And like I said, it's literally a tiny mustard seed of, you might have a drinking problem you need to look at. There might be a drug addiction problem. And for those of us in recovery, it's a lot easier, because we can say, I've been there. I know, I understand where you're at and where you're going. But I think for a loved one or family member, I mean, the earlier the better, because it might take 7 or 8 times. But I'd rather try 7 or 8 times than not try at all. And then there's no second chance. With an overdose death, cirrhosis of the liver, there's really no second chance. So.
When you're thinking, well, my teenager's acting a little different, what are some of the signs that you would look for in a teenager?
That isolation, new change of friends, money missing, any items that are gone stolen. I mean, that's kind of a red flag. The behavior at school, if they're a good student and now all of a sudden they're really bad, if they're an athlete and they're no longer interested in athletics, if they played guitar and now they haven't picked it up in months, there's the kind of, they used to hang out with a girlfriend or boyfriend, now they don't. I mean, all those kind of change in patterns usually mean that something big has changed, And a lot of times, I tell a lot of the, when I do some of the prevention talks with schools and stuff like that is, how are you feeling today? Why do you feel that way? Those questions that no one ever really wants to ask, those mental health things, are you okay? If you see a teenage boy or girl sitting there crying alone, it's okay to ask them, why are you crying? Are you okay? Because that usually starts to lead to, bigger issues that they don't want to talk about. As a teenager myself, I kept everything inside and thought that's how you had to deal with it. It's not always the case. You don't have to.
So how do they, if somebody wants to get in touch with your organization, how do they find it, and where do they go to?
There's GateHouseTreatment.com. It's probably the easiest.
GateHouseTreatment.com.
Yep, is our website. That will have the the number to contact our admissions team or clinical outreach team. 844-GHT-0123 is the phone number that goes to our main line.
And everything's confidential, HIPAA and all
everything is confidential, yeah.
Ed, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. And if you know somebody that's needing recovery, or if you need recovery and you need some help, contact GateHouse. They're here locally, and there's somebody here wanting to help. There's a lot of help out there if you know somebody or if you yourself need it. Until next week, thanks for watching Speaking with the Senator.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.